Next is Ciaran Reid, who has worked in local and community development over the last 25 years and is currently CEO of Louth Leader Partnership, which, as most of you might be aware, is a local development company which provides a range of employment, community and rural development programs. He's board member of the Irish Local Development Network, which is the representative body of local development companies, and a board member of PUBL. So Ciaran, can you give your response?
Thank you, Paul. Just confirm you can hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I very much welcome the opportunity to respond to this. I'm mindful I was on a webinar a number of months ago where the Secretary General of the Department of Social Protection introduced this caveat to his talk, which was that he wasn't speaking on behalf of the department, nor necessarily was he giving his own views, but that he was just going to respond to the report. So maybe what I might do is, in parlance which is being used at the moment, is in the education sector, is give a blended response back to the report. I think it's important probably from the outset to say is that fantastic work is getting done at a local level, and that the community sector is very resilient and has showed significant flexibility in terms of responding to and engaging with the process of commissioning. I do agree though with the report in relation to its key recommendations and findings in terms of the damaging impact that commissioning has had. One of the key considerations in the commissioning process that's currently in play is this issue in relation to risk transfer from the state through these contracted processes. And particularly then the issue of establishment and capital costs in terms of delivering programs. And this risk is being transferred down to voluntary board members at local community level. And what we'd like to try and do is understand the dynamic at community level, particularly from board members in terms of their responsibility, particularly with the emergence of the LCDCs, where a lot of decision-making processes that were traditionally made at local government, at local community level, are transferred across now under some of these contracts to the LCDC, and its effect of effectively draining some of the capital from local development boards into LCDCs. So this has been an impact, I think, of the whole restructuring of local government and decision making, and then how contracts are managed and held at local level. One of the other drivers that's been mentioned already is this issue of value for money. And it seems to me what it's doing is that in trying to identify value for money, programs are being overly engineered and designed. So for example, you have to be clear about inputs, outputs and outcomes. And I think that's a reasonable expectation in relation to if you're receiving funding, that you're able to clearly demonstrate the value and the impact at a local level. But what it's doing is that it's drawing up and maybe bringing out some examples where there's potentially unintended consequences. So for example, in the employment services, we are able to receive clients from the department, but we then have to give those clients up after 12 months. So it breaks the relationship and the developmental cycle that's required, particularly for long-term unemployed individuals that have more complex developmental and support needs. So there's an artificial process in terms of the engagement and design of programs that potentially then damages the effective relationship that needs to be required with clients. And there is also an assumption that you can swap one program implementer with another program implementer, I suppose then damaging and eroding the effective networking, the relationships built up over years to effectively support the network of referrals, to support the integrated program pathways that clients require. So these are issues that we have to consider in terms of why these issues are contracted in the way that they're currently contracted. I suppose I'd like to come back to the issue about voluntary boards. Voluntary boards were never set up to manage quasi-commercial contracts. That's not what they're in for. What they're in is to make a meaningful impact on their communities. And the complexity of delivering a range of different programs particularly say local development companies, where we try and deliver an integrated response, where we would bring a range of programs like Leader, TUS, Employment Services, the LES, all together into the communities. Each of these have their own individual terms and conditions in relation to contract. It has their own individual reporting responsibilities, and also then the obligations of managing potentially complex reporting relationships back, and then the individual staff human resource issues that that brings. So I'd like to kind of finish on that. There are some welcome initiatives and developments, and Paul alluded to the consideration from the Department of Rural and Community Development in relation to the Our Communities framework, where the policy will look in terms of one of the recommendations around commissioning, how that's designed. We're welcoming the whole initiative in relation to a governance passport, where the voluntary and community sector can potentially have a way of reducing some of the administrative reporting responsibilities. The community call, community forums at a local level, certainly our experience in Louth, there has been a very welcome coordinating process at local level. And we'd hope that the patterns of work that emerged and the patterns of networking that emerged from that could be learnt and designed into how processes can be delivered. So they're my observations, and I thank you again for the opportunity, and we'd welcome to be continuing part of this process in terms of teasing out how this tendering process can be designed in such a way that benefits the target groups, particularly the most vulnerable members of our society, migrants, members of the travelling community, Roma, etc., who need very important design considerations when programs need to be co-designed. Thank you.